afternoon to you all. My name is Lorraine Sibanda, and I'm the National President of SICHIA. Today I will speak on behalf of 3 organizations who work with informal economy workers. These are namely Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations, which I work with, Alternative Business Alliance, ABA, and National Vendors Union of Zimbabwe, NAVOS. Today we are here to make a press statement to abhor the harassment and the continued ill treatment of informal workers in Zimbabwe. This grouping, we have called it the National Informal Economy Network, condemns the continued persecution and prosecution of vendors across the country. We call upon government to engage us in dialogue with us to work towards an amicable and lasting solution to the vending crisis, as well as informal work explosion at large. The network will establish a national platform for stakeholders within the informal economy to harness and amplify their voices, demands, and calls for social and economic justice. We call upon government and local authorities to provide alternative, decent, and lucrative working spaces for all informal economy workers. We demand that government and local authorities stop criminalizing vending and other forms of informal economy work. We demand that measures be put in place to put an end to the unprecedented levels of corruption, extortion of bribes from informal economy workers by various authorities. We demand an end to partisan politicization of informal economy workers and their working spaces. We also additionally demand an inclusive, consultative, and participatory policy framework formulation for the informal economy. For instance, the outdated bylaws are no longer relevant and applicable to the current Zimbabwean economic situation, where more and more people are now working in the informal economy. We call for the respect of the informal economy workers' rights as enshrined in the National Constitution of Zimbabwe. Informal economy workers' rights are human rights too, and thus stand to be respected, protected, and upheld. We encourage government to seriously consider resolving the informal economy crisis in respect of human rights and the decent work agenda. We would like to express our gratitude to the different partners and stakeholders who have continued to support our cause as informal economy workers, and the media for tirelessly highlighting the plight and efforts of informal economy workers. I thank you. Yes, we do. There has been a barrage of harassment within the Harare Central Business District of a number of vendors. And it is quite unfortunate that one of our members, NAVOS, has just left for a court case. These vendors were arrested and tried. Some of them were released on bail yesterday. And right now, efforts are underway to have 2 who remain in the cells to be released.
More questions?
Well, I heard you talk about engaging the government and coming up with lucrative ways of how there can be a solution to the whole thing. I don't know. My question is on, have you maybe drafted a document that you propose to the government as a lucrative way forward?
For this one, I will speak for the Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations. We have various documents which have been presented to the government, including a document and a presentation to Parliament on how we can work together, both the informal economy representation and the government, towards a sustainable tax system for the informal economy workers to contribute to the fiscal without them being strained, and also without the government being put through the method of actually abusing people's human rights as well as confiscating their goods.
Now, how many members do you represent in your 3 organizations, and can you say that you speak for all the vendors and informal traders who are currently operating in Zimbabwe? Is there unity amongst the millions of vendors who are operating, or you just speak for the minority?
I wouldn't call it a minority per se, although I would also be quick to deny that we represent all. If you were listening to my statement, I said informal workers. That's why I ran away from the word all. It wouldn't be true to say all, because we do have a certain number of members that we represent. And it is quite unfortunate, because we needed to make a press statement today. As people are suffering and being arrested, some of them don't even have the $10 or $20 fine to pay if they are called upon to pay that. We had to make this statement. At a later date, we can be able to supply you with figures, accurate figures. Because if I were to just about guess right here, the figures wouldn't be accurate.
Okay, maybe let me also ask a question. Maybe let me tend to be the devil's advocate. In the past weeks, or since we've had the clashes between the vendors and the municipal police, government and city council has ordered vendors to move away from the streets. They've been ordered to go to designated places, places like places that have been provided. How for your members, we have tried to abide by the law and maybe try to use those places. How has been the business in those areas? And for those that are still in the streets, is it not better to come up maybe with strategies, or to come up with the ways in which you can make your business more easier in those places that the government ordered you to go, than to be harassed each and every day in the streets? Because we are seeing running vehicles between the police, the city council, and the vendors in the streets. Is this not the best way for you to mobilize your members and abide by the law and go to the places, to the designated places? Not that I'm saying that is what I want, but I'm just saying someone would ask you why, like we are being confrontational, but there is no solution.
To answer that, I will say we are not merely being confrontational. Here we seek to find solutions for both our members, as well as the image of both our country as well as our organizations, and also to ensure that future generations do not suffer the same social and economic injustices that we are suffering. To answer your question on designation of places, yes, we do acknowledge the existence of such places. And as you will note, my second point was on the demand for decent and lucrative working places. When we talk about decency, it comprises so many factors. We are talking about the availability of ablution facilities, where people can have toilets and running water. Because if you are going to work at a place from as early as 7 a.m. up to 6 p.m., you really need running water to maintain a certain decency and healthy standard. So for government to be able to move the people who are working in the streets to a place where they can work decently, we have no resistance to that. What we resist is moving people to a place where they cannot have access to water, neither can they have access to ablution facilities for the day. And also where their wares are exposed to all kinds of weather, which also makes them unsellable.
And also, I think to add on to that, to what Madam Chairperson has said, I think we also need to take cognizance that the informal business is as good as formal business. It also follows the human traffic, where business is. So we are talking also of the lucrative sides. How conducive are those sides for business? Because question of taking any person anyway for venting is possible, but we need to look at the market aspect. Is it marketable at the end of the day? And secondly, you find also that there is this element that there are some vendors who have been left in the city, whereas others have been moved to move out to those peripheries of the CBD. So the question again goes also back to the doorstep of the policymakers in terms of the local authority, to say if they are to apply a policy, it mustn't be partisan. The removal of a vendor from the CBD should be a kind of global. Everyone has got to go. Then, according to their planning, then if they are to relocate, then everyone will be then taken up after everyone has moved out. So I think those are the two sides of the coin to the matter.
I just wanted to any ablution facilities in the streets, because you are demanding that you want toilets, you want running water. Are these things available in First Street, for example, where you find lots of vendors in there? Are you then not sending a mixed message to the policymakers? At one end, you are saying you want ablution facilities, but on the other end, you want to remain in spaces where those ablution facilities do not exist?
The message may appear mixed, but here now we are talking about government saying they are taking responsibility and allocating space for informal traders to work. These spaces where people are working within the city, many of them are informal. It is spaces that they've identified themselves, and some have been allocated by the same authorities who have given those people the spaces. There are limited ablution facilities. There is legally running water, just the same as there is legally running water in our homes. It is a nationwide challenge. So this challenge doesn't only fall on informal economy workers. It also speaks to Zimbabwe as a whole.
That are being used by vendors to, fight the council police. I remember one day I saw vendors standing in the street in the middle of, running traffic. What do you have to say about that? And I remember a sister of mine was caught up in the fiasco of, the council beating up the vendors, and my sister was caught up within that, and she's not a vendor. What do you have to say to that in terms of the strategies that vendors are using to fight council police?
I will be quick to admit that those are dangerous strategies, but desperate measures, desperate times call for desperate measures. These vendors don't even plan. They don't even have time to scrutinize their strategy to stand in the middle of the street. I think it was only maybe later, after your sister had also suffered, that they realized to say, we've even involved innocent people. So sometimes there is very little time to plan, because the municipal police will just descend without warning on these vendors. Therefore, it is even more imperative for us. We are here to use the press as a platform for lobby and advocacy, even for every citizen to understand that we are not informal workers because we like it. It's a situation we are caught in. And also to help us amplify our voice as well. To say even if we are the affected, it also affects the whole of society as a whole, as they are caught up in the running battles between the police, municipal police, and the vendors and other informal workers.
I think my brother.
Okay, I just wanted to find out, are there any members from the three organizations represented here that have taken up the stores at the designated places by council? And if so, how many are they? And how many more will be required looking at the membership of the three organizations?
For Zichia, there has been a general resistance to spaces which are not lucrative. For people to go to a place where they can't even market goods, where barely a person passes by, it's pointless to go and sell in those areas. So until and unless the areas are habitable for humans, and people are not just thrown into something that has not even been developed, where there is, I will repeat, no running water and ablution facilities, it is not lucrative at all, and it is not fit for people to operate in. What we need are decent spaces, and our government to honor the drive towards decent work agenda. Because as I mentioned earlier, informal workers are workers too. We cannot run away from the fact that we've seen so many people being continuously spewed into the informal economy. And it is becoming quite a crisis if government continues to be in denial of the fact that informal economy is growing.
Actually, I would want to add on to what the president is saying. In Harare, it's a bit difficult for them to access those areas. I think you know where they were put there at Coca-Cola. And someone, they say you work in town, you want a banana. You cannot go to Coca-Cola to get a banana. But we're saying the government should allocate people spaces within CBD. But outside Harare, our members have actually engaged with local councils, and they were asking if you've identified a suitable space there where you can go and put your stalls. We have a very good example of Chebutu, and they identified a place and they were given a go-ahead to put up their stalls.
Then you are saying most of your members, there is some form of resistance for most of your members. Then I think that's when the government will come in and say that you are hell-bent on just fighting or running or having battles with the authorities. They will say, right, it means you guys are activists. You are not vendors. So my question to me, for me, to you is, from amongst your leadership, are you a vendor yourself, or you are activists who are masquerading as vendors? So, because these guys, that is the question that they will come with, and they say, why is it that all of you are resisting? You see now. So there is that need for, like what you are saying, that you cannot get bananas at Coca-Cola or something. But the government will say, a long time ago, we used to know that if you want something, you go to Mbare Musika. If you want something, you go to Sias or something. So, or some other places. So there have been places that have been designated. So from what you are saying, I think that is the main challenge that you may face from the government. So I think you also need to come up with strategies on how you make these places viable. Even, yes, it can be confrontational, but I think there is also need for you maybe coming up with strategies on how you can make these places viable for some of your members.
I think
maybe my last question is, are you a vendor yourself?
I'm not a vendor per se. What we are talking about, when you say informal economy, it is very broad. Because Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations caters for a whole lot of forms of informal work. Amongst our members, we've got, to mention a few, we have sculptors, welders, carpenters, tailors, like myself. I am a tailor. I do interior decor. I also make clothes. And we also have those people who are engineers. And that also brings in the motor mechanics. And there is a whole lot of people who are involved in our organizations here. Then NAVUZ specifically looks at vendors. So even as we speak, I will not, I will assure you that I am not masquerading. And even as I am here, I'm losing out on business, speaking for all the people in the informal economy. While I'm here speaking, my business is suffering. I'm supposed to be doing a few stitches on an order or two. So to answer your question, on us being merely confrontational, I would also like you to note that we are not being confrontational. If we go back to our statement, the very first statement, you are calling on government to dialogue and engage with us towards a fruitful solution of actually rectifying and stopping the crisis of informal economy work. Because when I say people resisted that move, it does not mean they stopped working or they continued to work in illegal spaces. We have a very perfect example as the chair of Chitungwiza. We have even partnered with the International Labour Organization and are working with the Ministry of SMEs. There is a viable factory in Chitungwiza, which at a later date, we may arrange for you to visit. It's a viable factory that has created some form of decent work for quite a number of our members. Even as we are doing this, we are not just pointing a finger at the government. We are also making efforts to combat that crisis. But government should be seen to be playing a bigger part because they are bigger than us. They are our custodian, and we look up to them to lead the process, even as we input into the process of bettering the lives of people in the informal economy.
And also, I think to add on that, on your question, is also to say the engagement is going on because you find that after various organizations having approached the local authority, I think now our Harare City Council has got an informal economy committee, which we constantly engage the chairperson, who is Councillor Janjas, to address the issue of the working spaces for the informal workers. Because especially vending in Harare, it's so historical that if you look in the late 1990s, coming to early 2000, vending, people have been removed in the streets. It's not the first time they've been removed. I think this is the third time during the Tawengwa era. Tawengwa liberalized the old streets. I think you remember that. And it became another hive of activity in the Harare city streets. And again, post his tenure, they were removed. And after that, after some years, they were brought back. So we are finding that we are remaining in a circus. But here we are talking of people's livelihoods. We're talking lives here. It's not about just chasing one another, but what you are saying is, are we understanding that that person needs to have a meal at the end of the day? So that's where I think the passion of the Madam Chair and other organizations are so particular to say, let's address this once and for all, especially concerning the street vending.
Have you made the local authority aware that the designated places, there is at Kokum there and Coca-Cola are very small compared to the number of vendors that is there, that is always constantly coming into the fray?
Yeah, I think that one was done without actually aggregating the numbers of those of the informal workers in the CBD and actually with the sites. That's why you find even that when the local authority even cited the one at Tsiga in Mbari, trying to expand the places, but you equally find that the informal workers at the Mbari Musiga themselves, they quickly occupied and resisting any other informal workers coming from anywhere to occupy that. So you find that even the space which the council has designated is also limited in terms of the numbers of the practitioners out there or of the informal workers.